The only way to do great work is to love what you do. Steve Jobs. Have you ever wondered who created the universe? It's a question many of us ask during quiet moments of reflection. Maybe while gazing at the stars or sitting alone after a loss, we find ourselves wondering, how did all this come to be? This question stirs something deep within us. It connects to our curiosity, our longing for meaning, and the need for comfort in the vastness of life. But what if this age-old question wasn't the answer to the peace we seek? What if there's a different way to look at the universe? What if, instead of focusing on who created it, we focus on how it came to be, not through the will of a creator, but through the conditions that exist in this very moment? This shift in perspective is what Buddhism offers. Buddhism doesn't focus on the question, who created the universe? Instead, it asks, what causes this moment to arise? The universe is not something created by an external being, but something shaped by countless causes and conditions that come together, continuously and without end. But why is this important for us? In our daily lives, we are often stuck in the search for meaning in abstract concepts, like the origin of the universe or our place in it. But understanding the conditions that lead to our experiences, our joys, our struggles, and our pain, is where the real freedom lies. By understanding how everything is interconnected, we can begin to see our role in the universe, not as mere creations, but as participants in a dynamic, ever-changing process. Welcome to Son.Mindfulness. Here we dive deep into the teachings of Buddhism to help us navigate life's complexities. This channel is dedicated to providing insights into how mindfulness and Buddhist principles can help us find clarity, peace, and inner freedom. If you're looking for practical wisdom to live a more fulfilling life, you're in the right place. Now let's explore this profound shift in perspective. What happens when we move away from asking, who created this, and begin asking, what causes this moment to arise? Stay with us and let's dive into a perspective that could change the way you see the universe and your place in it. Chapter 1: The Age-Old Question and Human Curiosity. Have you ever looked up at the starry sky or sat alone after losing a loved one and thought to yourself, who created all this? This question is not new to any of us. It is a deep question, not merely born from curiosity, but from a longing to find meaning in life. Why do we ask this question? From the moment we are born, we are taught that everything in life has a creator. A house is built by a builder. A book is written by an author. And when we look up at the vastness of the universe, it's only natural to ask, who created this universe? This question is more than just curiosity. It taps into our deep need for comfort. We want to feel that there's a plan, a purpose behind everything. So, what do you think about this? Do you feel that there might be someone looking after you, guiding you in the vastness of the universe? Could it be that we are searching for a creator to explain our existence? This is completely understandable. When life becomes uncertain and challenging, we long for a creator, a higher power to provide comfort and reassurance. But does this question truly help us resolve our uncertainties? Of course, we need to feel protected and loved, but perhaps these questions only lead us further away from the answers we seek, rather than bringing us clarity. So if not a creator, could there be another answer to the universe's existence? Buddhism doesn't go down the path of explaining that a God created the universe. Why is that? Buddhism doesn't focus on who created. Instead, it asks, what causes this moment to arise? Buddhism doesn't seek to explain the universe through the lens of a creator. Instead, it focuses on the conditions, the causes that bring the universe into being. Let's think about this for a moment. In reality, Buddhism doesn't deny the existence of phenomena. It simply views the universe as a series of events arising due to interconnected causes and conditions, rather than a fixed creation from a single creator. Could we begin to see the world in a different way? Could we shift our focus from searching for a creator to understanding the conditions that give rise to the world around us? This is where a change in perspective becomes necessary. What if we stopped looking for a creator? We would then focus our attention on the inner causes, the conditions within our own mind and actions, rather than gazing up at the sky. And where might this lead us? Certainly, there are many questions still lingering, and we still don't have all the answers. However, we will see that understanding the conditions, the causes that make things exist, could provide us with more valuable answers than endlessly asking about the origins of creation. So, are you ready to shift the way you perceive the universe? And now, we move on to the next chapter. Buddhism and the concept of the universe. Can we expand our understanding of the universe, not through a creator God, but through the cycles and natural conditions that Buddhism teaches? Let's find out. Chapter 2. Buddhism and the concept of the universe. Have you ever wondered what the universe truly is? Is it a giant machine, meticulously crafted and designed? Or is it something more organic, constantly changing and evolving? What if the universe wasn't created in a single moment, but is part of an ongoing, ever-changing process? Buddhism offers us a different perspective. Instead of focusing on a single fixed moment of creation, Buddhism teaches us that the universe is not something with a definite beginning. Instead, it moves in vast, continuous cycles of existence, the cycle of birth and death, known as samsara. Imagine a river flowing. The water constantly moves, reshapes itself, and carries along everything in its path. But does the river have a beginning? Does it have an endpoint? The answer in a way is no. The river's flow is endless. The water moves from one point to another, constantly renewed. But the river itself doesn't have a beginning or an end. It is simply an ongoing process. Isn't this an interesting way to think about the universe? Does it make you question your perception of how things came to be? Samsara, the eternal cycle. In Buddhism, the universe is seen as an eternal cycle. It's not just about you and me. It's the entirety of existence, from galaxies to the smallest specks of dust. The Buddha described the universe not as a singular creation, but as something that is always arising, fading, and returning. In fact, the Buddha himself spoke of the vast, unimaginable beginning of samsara. In the Asu Sutta, he said, "Unimaginable is the beginning of this samsara." It's unimaginable not because it's unknowable, but because it doesn't exist in the way we think. There's no single starting point or a fixed source. Instead, everything arises based on conditions coming together. There's no need for a single creator or designer. The universe as a living process. Think about the universe like a living organism. It's not static. It's constantly moving, shifting, and transforming. Just like your body, which is made up of countless cells constantly in motion, the universe is a vast living process. This is what the Buddha taught. In modern science, we find a similar concept. Einstein, for example, respected the natural harmony within the cosmos. He didn't see the universe as the product of a singular creator, but as a complex, harmonious system with its own laws. He marveled at the way time, space, and energy interact in such a profound and ordered way. Does this idea of a living, breathing universe resonate with you? Can you feel the universe moving around you, constantly changing, just like the air you breathe? The flow of conditions and causes. In Buddhist thought, everything that arises does so because of certain conditions. There's no beginning in the traditional sense. Rather, everything comes together in a moment, shaped by the conditions and causes that exist at that time. Take a moment to think about this. When a seed sprouts into a tree, the tree didn't come out of nowhere. It arose because of specific conditions: the right soil, water, sunlight, and time. In the same way, the universe arose from conditions, interdependent and ever-changing. Buddhism calls this idea dependent origination, or pratityasamutpada. It means that everything exists because something else exists. Nothing stands alone. What's fascinating about this principle is that it echoes ideas found in modern science. For instance, in the world of quantum physics, we now know that particles only come into existence when they interact with other particles. It's not as if they exist independently. Just like the tree couldn't exist without its conditions, the universe couldn't exist without the right conditions coming together. Everything is interconnected. Imagine a spider's web. Every thread connects to every other thread. Touch one part of the web, and the whole thing shakes. This is a perfect analogy for how the universe works in Buddhism. Each thing in the universe, whether a star, a thought, or a feeling, is interconnected. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything that happens, no matter how small or large, is connected to everything else. Doesn't this make you think about your own life? Every action, no matter how insignificant it may seem, ripples through the universe in ways we may never fully understand. The shift from creation to condition. So instead of asking, who created this universe? Buddhism asks, what causes this moment to arise? This shift in thinking helps us see that the universe is not just about a single event or a creator. It's about understanding the conditions that shape our lives and our experiences. How might your life change if you began to see your existence as part of a living, interconnected web? How might this shift help you make sense of the ups and downs, the challenges and the joys that life brings? And now, as we explore the Buddhist perspective further, we turn to Chapter 3, Dependent Origination, the connection between all things. How does the idea of interconnection fit into the bigger picture of life? Let's find out in the next chapter. Chapter 3, Dependent Origination, the connection between all things. Have you ever noticed how every small action you take seems to have a ripple effect? Maybe you smile at someone and their day gets a little brighter. Or perhaps you made a small choice and it led to something much bigger. What if this is how the universe works too? Every moment, every event, every being is connected to every other one, creating an intricate web of life. In Buddhism, this concept is called dependent origination, or pratityasamutpad. It teaches us that everything arises because of something else. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything is interdependent. The universe, your life, and every thought, word, and action you have are part of a grand interconnected system. Imagine a spider's web. Think about a spider's web. Each thread is connected to every other thread. If you touch one strand, the entire web trembles. This is how the universe operates, according to Buddhism. Every part of the universe, whether a star, a plant, or a thought in your mind, is connected. When one thing happens, it affects everything else. Now imagine your life as part of this web. What if every choice you make, no matter how small, sends ripples through this web? What if your actions shape the world in ways you might never fully understand? The Buddha's deep insight. When the Buddha became enlightened, he gained the ability to see this interconnectedness clearly. He saw how all things arise, not in isolation, but because of certain conditions coming together. For example, let's take something as simple as your breath. You didn't create your breath, you didn't make it happen. It arises because of certain conditions. Your body needs air, and the process of breathing happens automatically. Now think about the universe in the same way. Every star, every planet, every galaxy exists because of specific conditions that have come together. Nothing happens by chance. Everything that exists in the universe is part of a complex web of interdependent causes. The interconnectedness of all things. Let's consider the growth of a tree. A tree doesn't just appear. It grows because of a set of conditions: soil, water, sunlight, and time. If any of these conditions were missing, the tree wouldn't grow. It's not just one condition that makes the tree appear. It's the combination of all the factors. The same applies to everything in the universe. Everything arises because of the interaction between various causes and conditions. Doesn't this idea challenge how we normally think? We tend to think of things as separate, This is me and that is the world. But Buddhism invites us to see beyond this separation, to realize that we are all part of the same web of existence. Karma, the seed of actions. This concept of interconnection is also deeply related to karma, the law of cause and effect. In Buddhism, karma refers to the actions we take and the consequences that arise from them. Every action, whether good or bad, creates a ripple in the web of life. Have you ever thought about how your actions affect not only your own life, but the lives of others as well? Perhaps something as simple as offering a kind word to someone else can change the course of their day. What if your daily choices, big or small, are shaping the reality around you? The Buddha understood that this interconnection wasn't just about physical actions. It also applies to our thoughts, emotions, and intentions. Every thought we have, every feeling we experience, creates an impact on the web of life. In this way, our minds, too, are interconnected with the world around us. The ripple effect of every thought and action. What's fascinating about dependent origination is that it applies to everything. It's not just about physical things like trees and stars. It's about every single moment, the thoughts in your mind, the words you speak, the choices you make. Everything arises because of something else. Just like the spider's web, if you touch one part of your life, the entire web shifts. So what happens if you start becoming aware of your thoughts and actions? How might your life change if you understand that every choice you make has an impact, no matter how small it seems? The power of awareness. The key to understanding dependent origination is awareness. When you become aware of the interconnectedness of all things, you begin to see the bigger picture. Your actions, thoughts, and words are not isolated. They are part of a greater, interconnected whole. By recognizing this, you can begin to make choices that contribute to the well-being of the entire web, not just yourself. What if you could shift your perspective and see the world through the lens of interconnectedness? How might this understanding lead you to live more mindfully, with compassion for others, knowing that your actions affect the world? And now, as we move forward, we'll explore Chapter 4, Buddhism and the concept of time and space. What does it mean for the universe to not have a single point of creation, but to exist in an endless cycle? Let's delve into this deeper and see how time and space are not fixed but fluid, just like everything else in this interconnected web. Chapter 4, Buddhism and the concept of time and space. Have you ever stopped to think about time and space? We often see time as a straight line, like a road that we travel on. We think of space as something that holds everything, like a box that contains objects. But what if time and space are not fixed? What if they are constantly changing, flowing, and moving, just like the universe itself? Buddhism teaches us that time and space are not fixed. Instead of seeing time as a line that moves forward, Buddhism invites us to view it as a cycle, a continuous, never-ending loop. This idea is central to the Buddhist understanding of samsara, the cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth. Cycles in nature. Think about the seasons. Winter turns into spring. Spring becomes summer, and summer leads to fall. Then the cycle starts over again. The seasons don't begin at one point and end at another. They flow into one another, constantly changing and transforming. In the same way, Buddhism sees the universe as an eternal cycle. There's no single start or end. Things are constantly being born, dying, and being reborn in an endless, fluid motion. Time as a fluid process. In the Buddha's teachings, time is not something we can grasp or hold on to. It's not a fixed reality, but a flowing, ever-changing process. Have you ever noticed how time seems to move differently in different situations? When you're enjoying something, time seems to fly. But when you're waiting for something, it feels like time is moving slowly. This shows us that time, like everything else, is not fixed. It's relative, it's fluid. Space as a field of potential. Just as time flows, so does space. Buddhism doesn't view space as a static container. Space is a field of potential, ever expanding and ever shifting. Imagine the ocean. It doesn't have a fixed boundary. It flows and changes continuously. In the same way, space in Buddhism is seen as something that's constantly changing, expanding, and contracting. This understanding of time and space challenges our usual perception of reality. Instead of thinking of time as something linear or space as something rigid, Buddhism invites us to see the universe as an ongoing process, with no clear beginning or end. The universe as a constantly moving flow. Now, picture a river. At any given moment, the river is moving, the water is flowing, the currents are shifting, and everything is in motion. The river doesn't have a fixed beginning or end. It's a continuous flow of water, always changing, always moving. This is how Buddhism sees the universe. It's not a static entity with a fixed starting point. Instead, it's a dynamic, flowing process that's constantly in motion. No fixed point of creation. One of the central teachings of Buddhism is that the universe doesn't have a single point of creation. It didn't begin in a moment of divine will or a big bang that set everything into motion. Instead, it arises due to the coming together of various conditions and causes. Think of a candle's flame. The flame didn't appear out of nowhere. It arose because of the wick, the wax, and the oxygen around it. In the same way, the universe arises from the coming together of countless conditions. So if there's no fixed point of creation, does that mean the universe is meaningless or random? Not at all. Buddhism teaches us that even though there's no single creator, the universe is still governed by natural laws. Laws of cause and effect, of interdependence, and of interconnectedness. The Buddha's insight into time and space. When the Buddha attained enlightenment, he saw the interconnectedness of all things, including time and space. He realized that the universe is not a fixed entity, but an ever-moving, ever-changing process. There is no fixed point of creation, and there is no end. Everything is part of a vast, continuous cycle of birth, life, and death. And this brings us to a powerful realization. If time and space are not fixed, then neither are we. Our lives are part of this ongoing process. We are constantly changing, evolving, and flowing, just like the universe itself. Living in the flow of time and space. What would it mean for you if you saw your life as part of this flowing cycle? How might it change the way you approach your daily life, knowing that everything is constantly in motion? Would you feel more connected to the world around you? Would it help you understand the impermanence of life and make you more at peace with change? The Buddha's teachings on time and space remind us that everything is constantly shifting. Nothing is fixed. Nothing stays the same. And this impermanence is not something to fear. Instead, it is something to embrace. By understanding the fluid nature of time and space, we can live more mindfully and appreciate each moment as it comes. As we continue, let's explore Chapter 5. The universe doesn't need a creator. What does it mean for the universe to arise without a creator? How does this understanding shape our view of life and existence? Let's dive deeper into this profound insight. Chapter 5. The universe doesn't need a creator. What if the universe doesn't need a creator? What if we could live in a universe that didn't come into being by the will of a divine being but arose naturally from the conditions present in it? Could we still find meaning and purpose in such a universe? The Buddha's insight into creation. Buddhism teaches that the universe has no single fixed point of creation. The universe didn't begin at a single moment, nor was it created by an external force. Instead, it arises continuously, shaped by countless causes and conditions coming together. This is a radical shift from traditional views of creation, where a god or supreme being is seen as the initiator of the universe. Think about it. If the universe isn't the creation of one being, then what does that say about us? We are part of the universe. We are not separate from it. Our actions, thoughts, and even our very existence arise from the conditions that we are part of. In this view, we are not created by an external force. We arise because of the interaction of causes and conditions. Doesn't that give you a sense of freedom? The universe doesn't need a creator to be meaningful. Its meaning comes from the way everything is interconnected. Every moment, every experience, every being plays a role in the grand dance of existence. We, too, are part of this dance, not as creations, but as participants in a vast, ongoing process. The Buddhist understanding of emptiness. The Buddha's teachings also offer us an understanding of emptiness. Emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. It means that nothing exists independently. Everything arises due to causes and conditions. There's no separate, fixed essence to anything. Everything is interconnected, interdependent. When we realize this, we see the world as it truly is, not through the lens of a creator, but through the lens of interconnectedness. Now let's look at how this view of the universe connects with modern scientific understanding. Chapter 6: The New Discovery. The intersection of Buddhism and science. Have you ever wondered how science and Buddhism might relate? Both science and Buddhism seek to understand the world and the universe, but in different ways. Science often looks at the universe through the lens of physics, mathematics, and empirical observation. Buddhism, on the other hand, uses meditation, mindfulness, and inner observation to understand the nature of existence. But what if these two ways of knowing the world are not so different after all? Similarities between Buddhism and modern science. At first glance, science and Buddhism may seem worlds apart. Science looks for objective facts, while Buddhism focuses on subjective experience. But when we dive deeper, we begin to see striking similarities. For instance, both science and Buddhism agree that everything is interconnected. Science has shown us that everything in the universe is made of energy, and that energy is constantly interacting. In Buddhism, we learn that everything is dependent on other things. Nothing exists in isolation. Both science and Buddhism reject the idea of a fixed, separate self. In science, this is reflected in the discovery that matter itself is not solid, but made up of particles and energy fields. In Buddhism, we are taught that there is no permanent, unchanging self, but rather that we are constantly changing and evolving. Einstein's view of the universe. One of the most famous scientists of all time, Albert Einstein, had a deep sense of awe and reverence for the universe. Einstein didn't believe in a personal God, but he did believe in a profound, natural harmony in the universe. He once said, "I want to know God's thoughts, the rest are details." He was fascinated by the underlying order in the universe, the way everything seemed to be connected and governed by natural laws. This perspective is very much in line with the teachings of Buddhism. Einstein saw the universe as a vast, interconnected system of energy, where everything was in harmony. In Buddhism, we learn that the universe is not a machine created by a god, but a living, breathing process that flows in harmony with the natural laws of existence. The quantum vacuum theory and Buddhism. Now let's talk about one of the most fascinating discoveries in modern science, the quantum vacuum theory. The quantum vacuum theory suggests that even empty space is not truly empty. Instead, it's filled with a field of energy, what scientists call the quantum vacuum. In this field, particles are constantly appearing and disappearing, even in what we think of as empty space. This idea challenges our traditional understanding of nothingness. In Buddhism, we have a concept that is strikingly similar to the quantum vacuum: emptiness. Just as the quantum vacuum is filled with potential energy, Buddhism teaches that emptiness is not a void, but a space filled with potential. Emptiness in Buddhism doesn't mean nothing exists, it means that nothing exists independently. Everything arises from conditions, just as particles arise from the quantum vacuum. Both perspectives challenge the traditional notion of a separate, fixed reality. In Buddhism, the universe is not a creation, but a process of continuous change and interdependence. In science, the universe is seen as a dynamic field of energy that is constantly shifting and evolving. The connection between Buddhism and science. When we look at the universe through the lens of both Buddhism and modern science, we begin to see that they are not as different as they may seem. Both perspectives recognize the interconnectedness of all things. Both reject the idea of a fixed, unchanging reality, and both invite us to see the world not as something separate from us, but as part of a vast, living process. So what does this mean for us? How can we apply this understanding in our own lives? What happens when we see the world as interconnected, always changing and full of potential? As we move forward, let's explore Chapter 7, Seeking Meaning. Why the question, who created, is irrelevant. What happens when we stop asking who created the universe and instead focus on how we respond to life's challenges? Let's dive into this profound shift in perspective. Chapter 7. Seeking Meaning. Why the question, who created, is irrelevant. Have you ever wondered why we keep asking the question, who created the universe? It's a question that has echoed throughout history, shaping religions, philosophies, and worldviews. But what if this question, in all its gravity, is actually irrelevant to finding true meaning in life? The Buddha's approach to meaning. The Buddha didn't spend his time searching for the answers to cosmic questions like, who created the universe? Instead, he focused on a much more practical and pressing question. Why do we suffer, and how can we end it? Think about that for a moment. What if we stopped asking about creation and instead asked, what can I do to stop my own suffering? This shift in focus is the essence of the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha understood that suffering, not cosmic questions, is the real issue we face in our lives. He realized that by focusing on our suffering, we can find the true path to peace and freedom. If we keep asking, who created this? We are just spinning our wheels, stuck in intellectual curiosity. But when we ask, what can I do to stop suffering? We take the first step toward liberation. The limitation of intellectual curiosity. There's nothing wrong with curiosity. In fact, it's a wonderful quality that drives us to explore, learn, and understand the world. But when we direct that curiosity toward abstract questions about creation, the origin of the universe, or the nature of God, we may find ourselves going in circles. These questions, while fascinating, do not lead us to the freedom we seek. Instead, they can keep our minds busy, tangled in thoughts that lead nowhere. Focusing on the present moment. The Buddha's wisdom lies in redirecting our focus from abstract intellectual pursuits to the present moment. By turning our attention to the here and now, we can begin to understand the causes of our suffering and how to break free from them. For example, instead of wondering about the origin of the universe, we can ask ourselves, what is happening in this moment? How am I reacting to it? This simple shift in focus can transform the way we experience life. The question of creation, a distraction. When we ask, who created the universe? We are looking for answers that may never come. We might spend our entire lives seeking a creator, never realizing that the answers we truly need are already within us. The Buddha knew that the search for a creator, while interesting, doesn't lead us to freedom. Instead, the focus should be on understanding the conditions that create suffering and how we can change them. What happens when we stop searching for a creator and start seeking liberation from suffering? This shift in focus allows us to let go of intellectual distractions and begin our journey toward peace. The Buddha taught that by understanding the nature of suffering and its causes, we can begin to heal, and liberate ourselves from the cycle of pain. Living with awareness. What if you lived with the awareness that the universe's creation is not as important as how you respond to each moment? What if you focused more on understanding your own actions, thoughts, and feelings, and less on abstract cosmological questions? This doesn't mean dismissing curiosity or the quest for knowledge. It means understanding that the real work is in the present moment, in your thoughts, emotions, and actions. As we begin to understand that creation isn't the key to meaning, we can embrace a deeper, more practical approach to life. By focusing on what's happening right now, we can uncover the real answers to the questions that matter most. Why am I suffering? And how can I end it? Chapter 8: The Path to Freedom from Suffering, Final Lessons. Now that we've explored the interconnectedness of the universe, the fluidity of time and space, and the irrelevance of the question, who created this universe, we are left with the most important question: how can we free ourselves from suffering? The nature of suffering. The Buddha famously said, "I teach only one thing, suffering, and the end of suffering." He knew that suffering is an inherent part of the human experience. It's not something we can avoid, but it is something we can understand and ultimately transcend. Suffering comes in many forms: physical pain, emotional distress, unfulfilled desires, and the inevitable loss we all face. But the Buddha also taught us that suffering is not something we must endure indefinitely. By understanding its nature and causes, we can find a way out. The Four Noble Truths. At the heart of the Buddha's teachings are the Four Noble Truths, the foundation of his path to liberation. 1. The truth of suffering. Life involves suffering. It's a reality we must all face. 2. The truth of the cause of suffering. Suffering is caused by craving, attachment, and ignorance. 3. The truth of the end of suffering. It is possible to end suffering by letting go of craving and attachment. 4. The truth of the path to the end of suffering. The path to freedom is through the Noble Eightfold Path, a practical guide to ethical living, mental discipline, and wisdom. The Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path is the Buddha's blueprint for living a life of wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. By practicing right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, we can gradually free ourselves from the cycle of suffering. The power of mindfulness. Mindfulness is at the core of the Buddha's path. By practicing mindfulness, we become more aware of our thoughts, emotions, and actions. This awareness allows us to recognize the causes of our suffering and to make conscious choices that lead to greater peace. Through mindfulness, we can let go of the patterns of craving and attachment that keep us trapped in suffering. The final liberation, nirvana. The ultimate goal of the Buddha's teachings is nirvana, the state of ultimate peace and freedom. Nirvana is not a place or a heaven, it's the cessation of suffering and the end of the cycle of rebirth. It's a state of profound peace where there's no craving, no attachment, and no fear. Achieving nirvana doesn't mean escaping from life, but transcending the suffering that comes with it. It's the freedom to live fully in the present moment, free from the chains of desire and fear. Your path to freedom. The path to freedom is not always easy. It requires effort, discipline, and mindfulness. But it's a path that is open to everyone. The Buddha taught that liberation is within our reach if we are willing to put in the work. So ask yourself, am I ready to walk this path? By practicing the teachings of the Buddha, we can find true freedom from suffering. We can live with peace, compassion, and wisdom. And in doing so, we can experience life as it truly is, impermanent, interconnected, and full of potential. Conclusion. Embrace the path of understanding and freedom. We've explored together the profound question of who created the universe. We've learned that Buddhism doesn't focus on this question. Instead, it invites us to shift our attention inward. It encourages us to ask, what causes this moment to arise? This simple shift in perspective helps us understand our suffering and how to free ourselves from it. Isn't that a profound realization? As we've seen, the universe doesn't need a creator. It arises from the interplay of conditions and causes. Just as a tree grows from the right conditions, soil, water, sunlight, everything in the universe is shaped by conditions. Nothing stands alone. Does this make you feel more connected to the world around you? We've also explored the idea of dependent origination, the interconnectedness of all things. Every thought, every action, and every feeling is linked to the greater web of existence. How can we use this knowledge in our daily lives? By understanding this, we can choose to live more mindfully, making decisions that contribute to our well-being and the well-being of others. The Buddha's teachings invite us to move beyond intellectual questions and focus on understanding the causes of suffering. He didn't ask us to believe in a creator, but to understand the nature of suffering and how to transcend it. How can we apply this understanding today? It's time to reflect. Take a moment to consider your own life. Are you ready to shift your focus away from abstract questions? Can you begin to explore how the conditions in your life shape your experiences? By practicing mindfulness, we can free ourselves from the cycle of suffering and live more fully in the present moment. How can you start applying these lessons in your life today? I want to thank you deeply for taking the time to explore these ideas with me. You've already taken a crucial step by being open to these teachings. Now, I invite you to practice and experience these lessons for yourself. The true power of these teachings lies not in just understanding them, but in putting them into practice. By living mindfully, by embracing the interconnectedness of all things, we can bring about positive change in our lives and in the world. If you found this discussion insightful, please don't hesitate to subscribe to the Son.Mindfulness channel. Join us on this journey of learning and growth. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below. What resonates with you? How do you plan to apply these teachings? Your feedback is valuable and helps us grow together. Thank you again for your time and attention. I wish you all health, peace, happiness, and endless good fortune. May you find the freedom to live fully, with compassion and understanding. Thank you.